Welcome into Sports Memo's Betting Podcast, Section 4 of college football. Every game on the board with Mid-Major Matt. Mid-Major Matt, welcome to the pod. How are you?
Doing well, Drew. Hard to believe this is the last full regular season week of college football, but of course that means championship weeks and bowl games, so the fun is still just beginning in college football.
Oh man, it is it is kind of a sad day, Matt. It's the last full slate of college football every game on the board podcast for this year. I guess we will, like you said, have championship week, go over all the bowls, but it won't be necessarily the volume of games we go over each and every week throughout college football season. But it is what it is, and we're closing with a bang. Starting off 379-380 Charlotte at Old Dominion. 50 the total here. Got 9.5. That's the 49ers laying on the highway, Matt.
So the key is for a lot of these games, and you're going to hear a consistent thread when I talk about a lot of these games, is motivation, because we're now at the last week. There are teams playing for bowls. There are teams playing for conference championship berths. There are teams playing for playoff berths. There are teams playing for all sorts of stuff, and then there's the teams that are playing for nothing. There's the teams that have fired their coaches. So, pay a close attention to a lot of these things, and then that'll help you out. Case in point, Charlotte is going to their first bowl game. They won last week. They beat Marshall at home. They have got to be feeling so good about themselves right now. They got Benny LeMay back last week, so he's feeling good. I looked it up. They've only been a road favorite once since joining the FBS. Now they're a big road favorite against an ODU team that's playing potentially for a coach that's really on the hot seat. Bobby Wilder is 0-5 against the spread at home, 4-13 the last 3 years at home against the spread. ODU's offense has been absolutely pathetic this season. They've tried a bunch of quarterbacks. The best one might be the one that they've got out there now in this Wolf kid. I'm not ready to lay this many points with Charlotte. Yes, they're definitely the better team, but where's their head at right now? They clinched their first bowl berth. ODU's playing for a coach that maybe they like, maybe they don't like. But if I was to tell you here, don't go jump into Charlotte this fast because they're the better team. It's a lot of points to lay on the road for a team that's only been a road favorite once in their program's history.
And that was Bobby Wilder, 0-4 ATS this year and 4-13 ATS at home.
From what I see, it's 0-5 at home and 4-13 the last 3 years, yes.
Wow, okay. Yeah, he's definitely on the hot seat and not cashing for the Monarch backers in that one. Staying in Conference USA here, Mid-Major Matt, we got Middle Tennessee State, MTSU at Western Kentucky. WKU laying 8.5 at home, 49 the total here.
Well, I had the over on Western Kentucky's win total. I'm stoked because obviously I hit it relatively early. I really liked the Hilltoppers before the season. They've even surpassed my own expectations. And the crazy thing is, if you look at the year, way back in week 1, they lost to Central Arkansas. And I felt to myself, I was like, dude, they've got no shot. The kid that Stephen Duncan kid wasn't very good at quarterback. He gets hurt. The Arkansas transfer Ty Story comes in. They're a very good defense, ranked 28th overall in total defense. They've allowed just 60 second-half points their last 10 games. I was reading up some recaps on the Middle Tennessee game last week. They beat Old Dominion 38-17, but the quarterback in passing said they had a couple more starters go down with injuries. Now, it's still early in the week. As we record this on Tuesday, practice reports aren't out there. There are teams with weird schedules because it's a holiday week with Thanksgiving on Thursday. Middle Tennessee's a really banged-up team. I feel like they used a lot of their energy to get that win, to close out senior night with a win over Old Dominion. Western Kentucky's the better team here. They've played better football. They're not going to allow a ton of points to Middle Tennessee. So I think Western Kentucky might be worth a look here at home, and certainly potentially the under here if they hold on to Middle Tennessee down in points-wise.
Heading out to Mountain West up next, Mid-Major Matt. Wyoming at Air Force. We got the Falcons laying 10 in the hook at home, 42 the total here.
Well, as the season began, I really wanted to fade Wyoming. I thought they got very lucky. The Missouri game, everybody wanted to back them. They said, oh, it was great. Well, Missouri traveling out to Wyoming, like an SEC team has no business playing at Wyoming. The next week, and I complain about this all the time, especially if you guys pay attention to this, they go to Texas State. Texas State outgains them, and yet they get a pick six and cover the game. And then they barely beat Idaho, who's playing better, but has also been terrible against the FBS. Fast forward all the way till now. No Sean Chambers. He's been out the past couple weeks. Tyler Vanderwall got hurt last game, and he is going to be available for this one. There was a question mark about their running back, Xavier Valade. He practiced on Tuesday. He should be good to go. This Air Force team is really impressive. If you look at what they've done down the stretch, I saw a stat, something like Donald Hammond had the least amount of pass attempts to get to 300 yards of anybody. He threw for over 300 yards against New Mexico. They're absolutely brutal. Air Force has had some brutal beats this season. I mean, I think I've seen them on Scott Van Pelt's Bad Beat segment at least twice this year. I like Air Force. They're the better team here. Maybe you tease them, throw them in with a couple of other teams and bring that number down because it's a really high number. But Air Force is the better squad here right now.
Matt, staying in the Mountain West, we got Fresno State at San Jose State. It looks like 2.5. That's what Fresno State, the Bulldogs, are laying on the road. We got 65 being the total.
Fresno State is a team that I really have to worry about when it comes to this thing. There's no bowl game in their future. They're coming off a tough 7-point loss at home to Nevada. Reading some of the clippings that came out of that game, the team was very frustrated not to get the win for the seniors. They've scored the exact amount of points, same amount of points as they've allowed. They've actually won the turnover battle, and they're plus in the turnover battle, yet they're 3 games under 500. This is a team that gave up 28 straight points in the third quarter, they scored 28 straight points in the third quarter, but it wasn't enough. They lost to a really bad Nevada team. We've talked about their injury issues. And you got a San Jose State team that's really good in terms of the Love kid's a good quarterback. They're home. They've had some good showings at home. They've had some good showings at all. They went to Army and won. The UNLV game last week, I chalked that up as UNLV playing for their coach that they know was leaving. It was their final game at Sam Boyd Stadium. I think San Jose State's worth a look here as the home dog. I got to wonder where Fresno State's head is at right now.
Mid-major Matt, we got a game here only a sports bettor can love in terms of Rice at UTEP. We got 6.5. That's what Rice is laying in El Paso. Looks like 44 being the total, Matt.
Rice has been a road favorite just once the last 3 seasons. They lost that game outright. The road team has won the last few in this series, but once again, UTEP is just atrocious. You look, their only win came against Houston Baptist by 2 way back in week 1. They lost by 9 at New Mexico State, and we know New Mexico State's a terrible football team. UAB, they lost by 27 at UAB. They lost by 7 at Charlotte. There's just nothing there to back right now for UTEP. Their quarterback is absolutely terrible, whoever it is under center, whether it's Loxley or some of the other guys that they've tried. And look, Rice has some momentum here. At Middle Tennessee, they win by 3. They beat North Texas coming off a bye week at home last week, 20-14. I'm not ready to lay points with Rice on the road, but there's no way you're ever getting me to bet UTEP in this one. Probably a game to pass on, but impressive what Rice has done to close out their season despite the fact there's no bowl game in their future.
Matt, you were just talking about UNLV and kind of firing their coach there. A little bit of a weird situation, I thought. Supposedly, did he get fired before they beat San Jose State or after? I'm not really sure. UNLV at Nevada, either way you look at it, this one in Reno. Looks like the Rebels catching 7 on the road, 52 the total here.
I'm frustrated. Last week I looked at that Nevada-Fresno State game. I was deciding between Nevada. I saw how poor their offense has been. I decided to go with the under. Little did I know they scored 35 points and lose the game. So I lost the under. I like Nevada, and I'm not going to take credit for that. If you look down the stretch, they've won their last 3 games. I was worried also about the bye week. They won 2 games. They had the bye week, and I thought maybe that would break up their momentum. It didn't. They played really well at Fresno State. Now they come home, and then, look, I talked about it. We just talked about it. UNLV, with all the emotion of the coach, the Sam Boyd Stadium, they came out and played really well, and I don't know if that emotion is going to be there at Nevada. I know this is a big rivalry game. I know that this is huge for UNLV. You could tell me. I mean, I'm sure everybody I talk to and I hear from, they're like, oh, yeah, that big game against Reno and everything. One of the injuries of note here, Romeo Dubs for Nevada. He's one of their better wide receivers. He suffered a shoulder sprain in the win over Fresno State. 44 catches, 649 yards, and 4 touchdowns in 10 games. That's modest numbers, but for a team that doesn't score a lot of points, I lean Nevada here because I wonder where UNLV's head is at, as they know their coach is a lame duck. They put all that into last week's win. Nevada's the better team right now, so I lean to Nevada in this one.
In the Big Ten, Matt, quickly, we got Indiana at Purdue. Looks like the Hoosiers laying 6 in the hook on the road, 55 the total.
Purdue is what could have been for Purdue this year. Now, they weren't going to be that great, but what could have been with all the injuries. They lose the Sindelar kid. I believe they lost another 2 quarterbacks down in Purdue. Whop Phillier, the wide receiver for Indiana, is expected to play. Stevie Scott, the running back, it's still early on in the week. We don't know if he's going to play. Something to watch for. Brom on the Purdue side said that Rondell Moore, there's a chance he could play. I don't know why. It's the last game of the year. Lorenzo Neal is probably not going to play. I don't know where Purdue is at right now. They're just not very good. Indiana coming off a really tough loss to Michigan. Their season kind of petered out a little bit after that 4-game win streak. They had the extra week to prepare for the road game at Penn State. They played well, but they still lost by 7. They came up short against Michigan. This feels like one of those games where they could get their frustrations out on the road. I never like laying this many points on the road, but Indiana is definitely the better team in this one.
He's mid-major Matt, and we're going through the end of the card here on the college football Week 14 rivalry week. College football every game on the board podcast. Next game up, 393-394 Texas A&M at LSU. If this is your first time listening, we have the first 3 sections posted on YouTube. You can watch the video. Also on the website, sportsmemo.com, and wherever you consume your podcasts. You can go listen to the first 3 sections if you would like. But mid-major Matt on now. We got Texas A&M at LSU, 62.5 being the total, minus 17. That's the Bayou Bengals laying in Baton Rouge.
By the way, mid-major Matt's best conference is the SEC. Go figure this year. I'm like 9-4 in SEC games this year. Remember last year, this game, 7 overtimes.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was the fight at the end where people are screaming at each other. There's family members of the coaching staffs of each place yelling at each other. There was a lot of emotion in this game. If you look at LSU, Grant Delpit comes back to safety. That was huge. He didn't play last week against Arkansas. They didn't really need him, obviously. He is a big part of that defense. There was a report that one of the running backs didn't practice on Tuesday, but as long as the Edwards-Hilaire kid is out there, they should be fine. On the Texas A&M side, they have a freshman wide receiver who was injured early last week. They don't know if he's going to play. Elijah Blades, a junior corner, could be back. He's their best cover corner. LSU's in one of these things now. Look, the committee did them a favor here, at least by giving them something to think about here, by putting them at number 2. They need style points. They need to go and whoop up on Texas A&M. So if you're thinking about that, they should be able to cover that 17 because they can't really show mercy. Ohio State's going to win this weekend most likely, so LSU has to kind of match up with them and keep winning and win by some big numbers.
Louisville at Kentucky up next, mid-major Matt. 52.5 being the total. Looks like the Wildcats laying 3 in Lexington.
This is actually one of my favorite games on the board, not necessarily to bet, but to watch. Because if you look, Louisville, with Scott Satterfield as their head coach, has been very good. They've been very competent. Their offense with the Cunningham kid at quarterback, the Hawkins kid at running back, they've been able to move the ball up and down the field. But they've also had some head scratchers. They lost at Miami. They lost to Florida State, 2 teams who are down. There was also the story that their starting safety, Russ Yeast, will not play. He suffered a knee injury last time out, 5th in the team in tackles with 61. Kentucky, they had all these issues at quarterback. So what did they do? They took the wide receiver, Lynn Bowden Jr. They moved him over to quarterback, and now it's been really successful. They put up 50 last week against UT Martin. They put up 38 on Vanderbilt 2 weeks ago. Kentucky has the better team here, but if Louisville gives their A effort, they could certainly win this game, hence why it's a really tight number. I kind of want to see where the market moves this thing. If it goes below 3, if there's 2.5s, I might consider one side. If it goes above 3, I might consider the other side. So I'm going to wait until closer to kickoff to see where this number goes because I can make a case for either side in this one.
We got the Iron Bowl up next, 397, 398, 3:30 Eastern on CBS. Alabama at Auburn. Mid-major Matt, we're seeing 50, the total in Jordan-Hare. Pretty much the market flat at 3.5 right now. That's Alabama laying in Jordan-Hare, Matt.
I always say this is like the Patriots. I feel like you always have to bet on the better team like in Alabama or the Patriots in this situation until you see them lose games like this. I know that Tua is not there. Henry Ruggs is expected to play. Raekwon Davis is still day-to-day from what I could tell. Phil Darian Mathis is returning to practice. I look, this is not my forte. I'm sure you could chime in better on this Alabama-Auburn game. You know, Bo Nix this is his first big rivalry game, so we'll see how Bo Nix is. There's going to be all sorts of pressure on him at home. They lost the game to Georgia at home. I think I'm going to defer to you, Drew. Do you have any sort of opinion in this game?
Yeah, well, one I would say, Bo Nix, he did play in the Deep South's oldest rivalry against Georgia. I guess that could be considered a rivalry game. Plus the fact, he's played in a lot of tough games. You got to give him credit for that. He hasn't necessarily looked good, but overall, Auburn 8-3 straight up, 8-3 ATS. Their losses at Florida in the Swamp, true freshman at quarterback, his first true road start. at LSU. We just went over it, the number 1 or number 2 team in the country by 3 points in Baton Rouge. And then just, 2 weeks ago against Georgia by a 1-score game as well. When you start talking quality losses, that's a heck of a resume the Auburn Tigers have put together. Mac Jones in his first competitive road start, I think that brings a question mark going up against a defense that has multiple players that are going to be playing in the NFL on the opposing defensive line. Talking Derek Brown, Marlon Davidson, Truesdale, Nick Coe. In my opinion, they'll all get a look on Sundays. The defense hasn't let up more than 24 points all season long. I think a lot points towards the under here, Matt. And at the same time, I do like Auburn. Now, granted, I am an Auburn grad, and my probably my lifetime record betting Auburn, Matt, with Cam Newton not on the roster, I would say is under 40%. Definitely lost a lot of money betting on him, but I like Auburn, man.
I will defer to you on this one. I can honestly say I very rarely watch Alabama, of course, because there's usually some sort of Conference USA or AAC game on at the same time. So it's just not my thing. I bet when I say I bet the SEC, I do a lot of Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Missouri type games, the bottom of the conference. Because as I like to say, look, I'm mid-major Matt. There's a lot of great handicappers on this site, you included, who do a lot more work on the bigger games. So I kind of defer to you guys. So to help the listeners and the watchers and the viewers and everything, I'm not going to give you. I'll give you the injuries and stuff that I see. But once again, go to one of the other handicappers who are more fluent in that sort of thing, because that's their forte, not necessarily mine.
Well, mid-major Matt, let's get back in your comfort zone here. Heading to the Sun Belt, Louisiana Monroe versus Louisiana Lafayette. Man, Lafayette is good, Matt. And now they're having to lay 20 at home, 68 being the total here.
It may not be enough. They're coming off a game where they beat Troy by 50. I mean, they just run. If you look at Lafayette, they've got that trio of running backs. They've got a bunch of running backs. They've had running backs all year. They want to run. They also with the Levi Lewis kid at quarterback. I mean, their offense is so proficient. I'm looking at the over. It feel like if we looked at the Sun Belt as a whole, as a conference, like their over numbers have to be ridiculous. Look, case in point, Louisiana Monroe last week, I had the over in the Coastal Carolina Louisiana Monroe game. It was a 45-42 game. It went well over the total. Caleb Evans, we've talked about him throughout our podcast. He's a very competent quarterback. They play with a little bit of pace as a team. They have played scores of 45-42, 51-29, 45-31, 48-41, 52-7 so far in their last bunch of conference games. The over is almost an auto bet in games involving Lafayette and Monroe. So I'm just going to look at the over here and think that there's going to be a lot of points scored once again.
Matt, the battle for GSU up next, 401-402, Georgia State versus Georgia Southern. 57.5 being the total. 7 in the hook. That's Georgia Southern laying in Statesboro.
The fascinating thing, once again, is Dan Ellington, the quarterback at Georgia State, is playing with a torn ACL. I mean, I don't understand it. He played last week. Now, granted, he was very limited. He wasn't as mobile as he is, and that takes out a big part of his thing. Their wide receiving core, Sam Pinckney's hurt, so I don't know how much he's going to be healthy for this one. But Georgia State's got a couple of injuries. Junior back J.D. King suffered an injury in the ULM victory. He is questionable. Junior linebacker Rashad Byrd, who's a big part of that defense, was carted off the field on a stretcher last week, so we don't know about his status. I've said in the past I don't love Georgia Southern's triple option, but 33, 51, 28, 24, 41, and 30 since coming towards conference play. They're starting to figure things out because no one in this conference plays defense. I wonder when Ellington's ACL starts giving out. I wonder if, they played their last home game last week. He may not even play in this one. Maybe he was doing it for senior day. There's a lot of question marks in this one. I lean to Georgia Southern, but I want to wait and make sure maybe there's a chance Ellington doesn't play, and then I'd like Georgia Southern even more because what's behind Ellington is not very good.
And we're talking with mid-major Matt. He's on a run in the NFL as well. Obviously knows his college football. And in the NFL, what, Matt, up over 85% the last few weeks?
13-2 run in the NFL after a rough start there, but we're back above 500 or at least around 500. But 13-2 run, seeing the NFL really well. I'll probably have a play up for Thanksgiving, and then of course the Sunday card as well.
And, guys, you can get all of those plays for a huge discount at sportsmemo.com using the coupon code MMM69. We'll give you his 7-day all access for less than $10 a day using the coupon code MMM69 at checkout. He's got NFL, college football, college basketball as well as right up his wheelhouse. So all of those sports every play he releases, less than $10 a day. Coupon code MMM69 at checkout. Northwestern versus Illinois in the Big Ten. Looks like the Illini laying 8 in Champaign. 43 the total here, Matt.
I know that there wasn't a look-ahead line for this game before the season, but I think there would be zero chance that Illinois would be favored in this game and would be an 8-point favorite in this game. A couple of injury notes here. Brandon Peters, the quarterback for Illinois, don't know what his status is going to be. They're coming off a loss, 19-10 at Iowa. They've accounted themselves well. 4-game win streak, a bye week, and then play well and cover at Iowa. This is their senior day. You look at Northwestern, this feels like a season that they're just ready to end. I mean, last week they lose 38-22 to Minnesota. The 22 points, granted, is pretty good for them. They scored 22, 45, and 22 pretty well. He's probably not going to play because he's got his 4 games and they want a redshirt. I don't know what Northwestern has left in the tank for this season, but I'm not ready to lay that many points with Illinois, especially the question at quarterback. This one's a complete pass for me.
Sorry about the technical difficulties, guys. Think we get it figured out here. Maryland at Michigan State up next. 48.5 being the total. 22.5 Sparty laying in East Lansing, Matt.
Feels like this season's over for Maryland. I mean, it is incredible because they were the story of college football. You go 79-0 and 63-20 your first 2 games. Temple breaks them. They hold them to 17, and then the bottom just drops out. They lose 59-0 to Penn State on a big Friday night game that they really pumped up, and then they get the win at Rutgers, but then they lose 40-14 at Purdue. They lose 52-10 at Minnesota, 38-7 to Michigan, 73-14 to Ohio State, 54-7 last week to a very bad Nebraska team, and that was at home. I know Michigan State's nothing special. Darryl Stewart Jr., the wide receiver, he's not going to be playing in this one. He'll be back for a bowl game if they qualify for that. Michigan State has had an easy way to finish out their season, 27-0 at Rutgers. They lose the Michigan game. They lose at home to Illinois. It's a lot of points. I would love to say that I'm ready to lay them considering how bad Maryland is, but is Michigan State going to score enough? I wonder if a play on the under is worth it here because Michigan State's offense is not great and Maryland's offense has gone to the crapper. So, I don't know where their head's at right now in this one.
8 o'clock Eastern kick. We're talking Bedlam up next. Oklahoma at Oklahoma State in the house that T. Boone Pickens built. We're seeing Oklahoma State catching 13 in the hook at home. 69.5 the total here, Matt.
Saw a stat that Oklahoma State has 18 of their 22 starters that were on the first team as the season began. Now, they lost Tylan Wallace. They lost Spencer Sanders. Drew Brown is their quarterback. Bedlam has always been an interesting game. Last year, Oklahoma State loses by 1 at Oklahoma. They lose 62-52 back in 2017. In 2016, they lose 38-20. These two have been pretty close despite the talent disparity. But once again, Oklahoma has got to go for style points. This is a team that needs all the help they can get. It didn't look good that they only won 28-24 last week against TCU. Jalen Hurts has been very turnover-prone as of late. Very unhappy. I had the over last game. To have him have 2 turnovers in the red zone last week, that screwed up my over there. Oklahoma needs style points. Oklahoma State wants to play spoiler. This is going to be a very underrated game this weekend. I lean to the Cowboys in this one. I think that they play a little bit of a spoiler, make things interesting in this one.
Matt, next game up, UTSA at Louisiana Tech. This one in Ruston, and Louisiana Tech, not sure what's going on with some of their top players being suspended or not, but they are laying a big number here, saying as high as 21 at home in Ruston. 55 the total here, Matt.
Well, the depth chart came out, and Jamar Smith and Adrian Hardy are back, or at least they're number one. The coach can change things, but at least the last weeks when they were suspended, they weren't listed. Now they're back at the top of the thing, and that makes a big difference. Jamar Smith is a developing quarterback. He is a senior, but he has some solid things. Adrian Hardy is a very good wide receiver. It is their senior day, so I'm guessing that's why they are back. UTSA can't score. They're going back and forth to a bunch of different quarterbacks. It looks like the Narcisse kid's going to start. They played JoJo Weeks last week. They're probably going to play him again so they can get him some time. He is a redshirt freshman, so they're trying to balance the whole redshirt thing and trying to get him some work, but it hasn't really helped. This team has given up 40, 36, 23, and 45 their last couple weeks. This feels like one of those celebration times for Louisiana Tech. Let's get some frustrations out and close out the year in style.
Next game up here, Matt. This number is a little bit surprising to me. Southern Miss at FAU. This one in Boca Raton with the Owls laying 9 at home. 54.5 being the total.
What we don't know is Jack Abraham's status, and that makes a big difference for Southern Miss's offense. When asked on Monday about it, they said, "We'll see," in quotes. The article that I read in Mississippi says that there are some sources that say they'll expect him to play. How healthy is he going to be? When you look at the Southern Miss offense, they don't have a ton of talent, so they need him there to keep things going. Florida Atlantic has been, good. They've won their last 4. They've won 8 of their last 9 since that really slow start. Of course, a lot of people are going to have a slow start when they play Ohio State and UCF. It is a rather big number here. Florida Atlantic has had some trouble at time covering that number. They only won by 14 at UTSA. They gave up 26 points to that team, which is a little high in terms of that. They embarrassed FIU in the big, rivalry game there. FAU's the better team here. Once again, can't play this thing until I know for sure if Jack Abraham's playing. That makes a rather big difference. I know that's going to change the line here. You may not get as much value, but I need to know if the starting quarterback for Southern Miss is going to play before I even consider them.
Matt, I totally agree with you. I mean, I've watched both of these two teams a lot, and if Jack Abraham's 100%, this number isn't anywhere near 9, Matt.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's still above 7, I would consider Southern Miss because I think he makes that much of a difference. I don't think he will, or I don't think it will be above 7 because I know if we're having this conversation, the odds makers are having this conversation as well. If it's above 7 and we know for 100% sure that Abraham's playing, I would play Southern Miss.
Yeah, I'd be with you. We got Tulane at SMU up next. Mustangs laying 3.5 at home. High total here, Matt, 71.5, depending where you're shopping.
Tulane has to be frustrated the last couple weeks. They had they get the late touchdown, they get the backdoor cover against UCF, but they kept up there. It was a 34-31 game. The Justin McMillan kid was so frustrated in the Temple game 2 weeks ago. They lose 29-21. He was constantly sacked, constantly harassed. I don't know if he was more pissed off at his offensive line, the play calling himself. He was just constantly on the run. Now they're playing at SMU, an SMU team that's coming off the rain-slogged game against Navy. I was really pissed that there was rain there because I was ready to lay the points with SMU last week, but the rain and everything kind of close the gap a little bit. I actually saw that Reggie Roberson saw a doctor. He's hoping to have his boot off. I don't think he'll be available for Saturday, but something to keep an eye on for the bowl season. They are getting Myron Galliard back at wide receiver. SMU's the better team in this one. My one question is, where's their head at after the Navy loss? They're not really playing for anything in terms of the American. They're already bowl status is pretty solidified. The only thing I can think of is it's senior week, but where's SMU's head at after that tough loss last week?
Matt, we got Cal at UCLA up next. Total of 51 with the Bruins laying 1 in the Rose Bowl.
The big thing here is DTR. Is he going to play? Is he at practice? He was not at practice on Tuesday once again. Here is an offense that it seems like they need a guy like that. It makes a big difference. Cal, it's weird because Cal, they started out with that 4-game win streak. We've talked about it. I know we've talked about the Arizona State game. When they were home, they lose 24-17, and then the bottom drops out. They lose their next 4. They've won 2 of their last 3. We know how good their defense is. We know how good their secondary is. Cal might be worth a look if the starting quarterback for UCLA is not there. UCLA is playing better football right now under Chip Kelly, but I think Cal's defense could frustrate them, and I think if Cal gets enough offense, I believe the Garbers kid is playing nowadays for Cal, which makes a big difference on offense. I think Cal might be a live underdog in this one.
Matt, let's head to Palo Alto in a game that has been a big game in years past. Not so much this year. Talking Notre Dame at Stanford. We're seeing the Irish laying 16 in the hook on the road. 51 the total here, Matt.
Notre Dame is playing for style points, too, because I believe under certain scenarios, from what I've seen in terms of bowl projections, they could still get a really nice bowl if things break. Yeah, I think it depends. I've seen them with some things. There's some people who've talked about if the Irish get some style points and if certain teams make the playoffs, Notre Dame could get a really good bowl game. But if they don't beat Stanford, then that's not going to help. You look, since that Virginia Tech game, which they arguably could have lost, 38-7, 52-20, 40-7. They are a fire has been lit under them. No KJ Costello, quarterback for Stanford. They've been pretty feeble as of late in terms of offense. The Irish on their depth chart added this freshman kid, Isaiah Foskey, who's playing defensive end. He makes a difference. He's going to help that pass rush because they are banged up ridiculously on the defensive line. No Javon McKinley, most likely, once again. I think Notre Dame's motivated to win this game. I think they're motivated to win this game big. Brian Kelly talks about how much they need to recruit the California area. to help out with their roster here. He said actually he's going to go and recruit after the game, clearly because their regular season's over. But this is a big game for Notre Dame's future. I think they're going to try and win this thing by a lot. And so if you're looking for a team that needs style points, once again, I think it's the Fighting Irish.
Guys, we got about 5 or 6 games left, talking with Mid-Major Matt in Section 4. He's our closer for the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast, Week 14, Rivalry Week. First 3 sections are on sportsmemo.com, also wherever you consume your podcasts. And, Matt, we got Arizona at Arizona State up next. Looks like the Sun Devils laying 13 in Tempe, 59.5 the total here. Territorial Cup, I believe it's called.
I believe it is as well. The Herm Edwards magic when it comes to this sort of thing. If you look, they're coming off a humongous win over Oregon at home. What's their head at? Where's the motivation at? They're home again, so that should help them. But if there's an opportunity for them to be sleepy a little bit, I understand it's their big rival. It's Arizona, but a whole week of hearing how good you are. By the way, this is the same team that just lost to USC a couple weeks before that at home, 31-26. On the Arizona side, this whole thing is ridiculous already. We're trying to decide if it's Khalil Tate or the Gunnell kid. Gunnell started the past couple weeks. They keep saying, Khalil Tate could start. We don't know. The big thing also for them is they have a ton of offensive linemen who are banged up. Last week they had 4 of them that were down. They were digging deep in the depth chart. They may get some of those guys back. I know they're going to want to play spoiler. The total might be worth a look here. It might be an over. If you get a potentially unfocused Arizona State team and you get the right Khalil Tate, maybe we get some fireworks in this game. So I think the over might be worth a look here.
All right. We got UAB at North Texas up next. Looks like the Blazers laying 3 in Denton, 50.5 the total here, Matt.
North Texas might be one of the biggest group of 5 disappointments in the league. I had such high hopes for North Texas. When you look at Mason Fine at quarterback, when you look at some of the wide receivers, Seth Luttrell was probably 1 foot out the door in some of these coaching searches. Coming off a 9-4 year, he has been very good. It's his 4th year. He's 23-17, but look at what they've done the past couple years. They've been such a disappointment when it comes to this season. UAB down the stretch with 2 wins. I know they were home against UTEP and home against Louisiana Tech. Bill Clark continues to be one of the best stories in the league. I think if we get the potential North Texas, we thought they are the better team here because they're home. But can you trust this team to be consistent down the stretch? They just lost to Rice at Rice. So off a bye week, by the way, no less. So I don't have any confidence in either of these 2 teams right now.
Mid-Major Matt, we got Utah State at New Mexico up next. New Mexico sealed the season win total towards the under, Matt. I was a little worried because that Air Force game got rescheduled. So a lot of times they'll just give you back your money if you win your season win total on things like that. But thank God they rescheduled it and Air Force took it to them. Either way, we're talking the Aggies laying 11 on the road here, 61 the total. Did I hear that Bob Davie finally was shown the door?
It's either he was shown the door or he's stepping down if they want to be diplomatic. But yes, Bob Davie, this is his final game at New Mexico. And I wonder what the motivation is. I wonder how much they're going to play for him in this final situation. But New Mexico's been terrible, as you've said. They lose by 22 to Air Force. They lose by 31 to Boise State. They lose by 11 to Nevada, 14 to Hawaii, so on and so forth. You keep going on. The losing streak has gone on since they beat New Mexico State in, what is it, the I-55 or I-52 battle or whatever it is. I-25, excuse me. I don't know where New Mexico State's head is at. But then again, also, you look at Utah State, 56-21 loss to Boise State. I've watched, Jordan Love a couple games this year. He's had his head in the clouds. I know he's playing for draft status and things like that. I know he's a junior. He may want to come back because his year's been so uneven. Neither of these 2 teams are worth a look here. I have no interest in this game whatsoever.
Matt, next game up in the ACC in your neck of the woods, actually. Miami, talking to the Hurricanes here. And, man, what was the stat I saw? I believe the University of Miami, for the first time in quite a long time, has lost 3 games this year as 14-point favorites. They've lost them outright. I believe that's the first time in quite a while in college football. Heck of a stat there. 47 the total as Miami goes on the road, faces Duke here. 47 the total. Miami laying 9 on the road. That's a tough one to lay for me, Matt.
Yeah, if you were to just jump on this thing blind face value, you'd want to jump on Duke. The problem is that Duke has lost 5 straight, and not only have they lost 5 straight, it's the way they've lost it. They're not scoring points. The 27 that they scored against Wake Forest, they had scored 44 of the previous 4 games combined. They're not playing defense right now. They gave up 39 to Wake Forest. They gave up 49 to Syracuse, 38 to Notre Dame, 48 to Virginia. By the way, 2 of those touchdowns by Duke were special teams touchdowns. They returned kickoffs for touchdowns, so it's not even like their offense was able to do anything. But where's Miami's head at right now? You don't lose to Florida International. This is not even a great Florida International team. They're really banged up. They've heard all week how terrible they are. Jaron Williams is still going to be the number 1 quarterback. I don't know what's going to happen. DJ Dallas is not going to be available. That was one of the most gruesome injuries I've seen because I think they said they had his shoulder or his elbow came out of his socket. Like it was I didn't want to think about it. These 2 teams, once again, what's the motivation for Duke? Remember the game 2 years? I think it was 2 years ago, right? It was the weird kickoff return with all the laterals and everything.
Oh, yeah, that was great.
These 2 teams, on face value, you take Duke. But Duke has not shown anything to me to make me think that they're going to snap out of the doldrums. Once again, this is a pass.
Florida State at Florida, Matt. 54 the total. Florida laying 18 in the Swamp.
Florida State is this is crazy because I think I want to back them here. I think it's a lot of points for a Florida State team that's won 2 straight, 3 of their last 4. They beat Syracuse. They lost to Miami at home in the big rivalry game, but then they won at Boston College. They won Alabama State. They're coming off a bye week, 2 weeks to prepare. They like the Odell Haggins as their head coach. You know, he's been the interim head coach. This is his 2nd time doing it. I was talking to E.J. Manuel of the ACC Network, and he suggested, why don't they just make him the head coach? Now, I don't know if you can do that at Florida State because you're such a high-profile job, but they play for him. They enjoy him. Cam Akers will be back. They're about as healthy as they can get. The only guy it looks like who won't play is the Ontario Wilson kid. My concern is Florida linebacker Amari Burney's ahead of schedule. Jabari Zuniga, who's missed, I believe, 8 games so far this year, he looks like he's going to be available. On face value, I like Florida State plus the points. I think I like the under here. Florida State's defense has played pretty well so far this year, and Florida's offense very hit or miss. We just heard Kyle Trask is going to return next year. I think Florida State's a live dog. I think I like the under in this one, maybe a correlation between the 2, but for some reason, part of me really wants to take the Seminoles, so I'm leaning in that direction here.
Yeah, I can see where you're going with that. And in terms of their coaching search, well, I mean, why wouldn't they? If their kids are playing hard for them, it's kind of like Florida State can a little bit recruit for itself. And what's like Bob Stoops going to do that the interim coach can't do, in your opinion, Matt?
Well, everybody I talk to, I've talked to several ACC insiders that I know. That's not happening. The whole thing, and Deion Sanders is not happening. Bob Stoops is not coming back to coach Florida State. Like, let's take that out of here. Urban Meyer's not going to Florida State. I haven't seen any of those things. I think they're going after a certain level of coaches, maybe Conference USA successful coaches. I think they're going after lower-level Power 5 coaches. And I think that's probably a better way to go. Maybe a PJ Fleck at Minnesota. But the question is, would he leave after a season like this at Minnesota? Florida State's going to have their pick of a very nice group. It's not going to be Bob Stoops. So let's just throw that out of here. It's not going to happen. All
right, Matt. We got BYU at San Diego State up next. Looks like the Cougars laying 3 at the Aztecs. 40.5 being the total here, Matt.
BYU, first off, let's start on the San Diego State side. 50-50 chance that Ryan Agnew, the quarterback, plays. That could be a good thing. That could be a bad thing. He's not a great quarterback. Also, defensive tackle Connor Mitchell is 50% to play. This is an under team if I've ever seen one. 14-11, 17-7, 17-13, 20-17, 27-17 were the last 5 scores in their games. They don't have a great offense. You know, the Juwan Washington kid who was supposed to be the next in a long line of great, like the Donnell Pumphrey and the rest of those running backs, he's been kind of disappointing this year, as has most of the offense. There's a lot of question marks with BYU. Who's going to be the quarterback? Jaron Hall has been practicing this week after he suffered 2 straight concussions. He could be cleared to play. You've got Zach Wilson, who was dealing with a foot injury. He played last week against UMass. You've got the Romney kid who's dealing with a foot injury. He may not be available. And then you've got the other kid, Critchlow, who played last week. He's the 4th stringer, so they may actually travel with 4 quarterbacks in this one. I'm guessing Zach Wilson will get the start. If Jaron Hall's available, he'll probably be the backup. If not, then the Critchlow kid will be the 4th stringer. They've got a bunch of injuries at running back that they have to deal with. The McChesney kid, who's a freshman, ran for 228 yards last week against UMass. 228 yards against UMass, I feel like it's 100 yards against everybody else. Like, that's not enough. You need to do better against UMass. There's a lot of question marks on both sides of this thing. San Diego State at home's not a terrible bet, but how much are they going to score? Probably an under here once again. San Diego State will want to keep this thing at a low-scoring affair.
2 games left, guys, and check out Mid-Major Match Service at sportsmemo.com. College basketball, college football, the NFL, which has been hot. 13-2, Matt? And check out his 7-day all-access coupon code MMM69 at checkout. Gives it to you for just $69 the next 7 days. All-access service. Every play releases in every sport he's handicap in less than $10 a day. Coupon code MMM69 at checkout. Let's talk some Civil War here, Matt. Oregon State at Oregon. The Ducks looking to bounce back, laying 20 in Eugene, 65.5 the total here, Matt.
In theory, we're talking about motivation once again. I know it's a rivalry game, but Oregon now is basically playing for no reason. I mean, look, they're playing for, of course, whatever they play for in the Civil War. I don't know if it's an axe, a weed of corn, who knows, whatever it is. But Oregon losing that game last week, I mean, that's a huge loss for them. They have no shot at making the playoff now. Now they can only spoil things for the Pac-12. Oregon State's been ridiculous. Their total before the season was, 2.5, 3? I mean, they went well over that total. They might have won last week. They probably should have won. It was a 54-53 game at Washington State. Luton's a very good quarterback. The Bradford kid, the Hodgins kid at wide receiver throughout the year. They've been really good. Their offense is good. Their defense is terrible. Positive injury updates on Jalen Redd, C.J. Verdell. Looks like Jalen Redd's going to play. C.J. Verdell in the backfield. Jake Hansen as well. Oregon's going to be as healthy as they can. Herbert's not been playing well this season. You know that he's going to want to take out some frustrations on Oregon State. Can they throw the ball down the field with their banged-up wide receiving core? The Johnsons at wide receiver. I think this could be an over here. I think Oregon State's going to put up some points, especially if they catch Oregon napping a little bit for this one.
Mid-Major Matt, last game up of the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast for Week 14, rivalry week. We got Army heading to the island to take on Hawaii. Rainbow Warriors laying 2 in the hook at home, 56 the total, Matt.
Talk about motivation. This is the perfect game. And guess what? It's going to be the one that everybody wants to bet. It's the midnight game. It's the catch-up game. It's the let's try and make something game out of a poor day.
Special.
Exactly. It's a game that everybody tunes into because they're trying to catch up. And look, I don't like doing the whole thing like, hey, I had a bad day. Let me try and bet the last game and make it all back, because that doesn't necessarily guarantee anything. But perfect situation here to take Army. Like, this is one of my favorite plays of the weekend. Hawaii clinched the West Division, the Mountain West. There's nothing that happens in this game that will change anything. This is, I believe, their first ever appearance in the Mountain West Championship. They have played very well, but once again, we're doing the whole, like, who's the quarterback? Is it Corderero or whatever, how you pronounce his name, or is it McDonald? Like, they keep playing this whole quarterback roulette thing. And then you got Army, who's been disappointing all year, but they've got 2 games in there wherever that they've won. They hammered out the Kinks. They even had coming off a bye week. Mm-hmm. They're the 23rd ranked defense in the country. We don't know what's necessarily the tough thing about Army is you can't figure out injuries, because we're dealing with the whole U.S. government. You're dealing with the whole thing. They're very tight-lipped about injuries. Who's the quarterback? Jabari Law's got a very serious injury against VMI, but there's still a chance he might play. Calvin Hopkins is the veteran of the group. They have another guy, I believe his name is Christian Anderson, who has run the offense pretty well. We don't know who it is. But this is a perfect situation to take Army. Do you really think Hawaii is going to be very motivated to play a triple option, grind it out style, when they've got all sorts of things to play for next week? Do we even see them sit some people? I think Army is one of my favorite plays of the weekend. Take Army plus the points, and just they're not going to be distracted by Hawaii. These are kids that they're not distracted by anything. So I love Army this weekend.
Matt, we got a special section coming up right here, 315, 316. We're hitting it for the second time because it's in the backyard of Mid-Major Matt, of where he's talking right now. Richmond for where can people listen to you, Mid-Major Matt? ESPN Richmond?
ESPN Richmond, I'm on from 3 to 4. Of course, the rest of the week I won't be on because it's the holiday, but 3 to 4 here in Richmond. I occasionally host the show from 4 to 6. Also, now this will be good for next year. Well, actually, also college basketball. I do a show on Saturday mornings from 11 to noon where we interview people from a lot of the state schools. So if you're interested in betting a Virginia basketball game, a Virginia Tech basketball game, Richmond, VCU, ODU, Mason, All those schools, we have reporters, play-by-play folks on. I talk to them for about 5-6 minute hits, get injury updates, find out their thoughts on each matchup. So if you're ever considering betting a state school game involving somebody in Virginia, on Saturday mornings from 11 to noon, I do a show called Border to Border, and we talk about all the games and get the latest information. And so if you ever need extra information, that's what the show does Saturday mornings from 11 to 12 on ESPN Richmond.
All right, well, we'll talk this last game. And, guys, just a reminder, on the coupon code MMM69 at checkout for Mid-Major Matt's 7-day all-access pass, college basketball, NFL, college football. All obviously knows is college football. 13-2 run in the NFL, and a college basketball aficionado as well. But let's give some information here, Matt, on Virginia Tech at Virginia. We're seeing 2.5, which is what I laid with the Hokies. Got bumped up to 3, even a 3.5 out there. And then I've heard news here in Las Vegas, Billy Walters is on the other side, pushing it back down to 2.5 here. 48 being the total. So some opinion in this marketplace. I'm going up against what a lot of people would consider the best handicapper in the world, Matt. What's your view here? You know these two teams very well. Been watching them all year, talking about them. Hokies at the Cavaliers. Looks like 47.5, the total in Charlottesville.
So this series has been fascinating. It's a 15-year run or so for Virginia Tech in beating up on Virginia. Last year, I thought the streak was going to end. They go into Blacksburg. They were favored last year in Blacksburg. They go and they have the lead, and then they go to overtime, and we all know Bryce Perkins fumbles, and Virginia Tech extends the streak. Virginia Tech, one of the hottest teams in the conference, not named Clemson. To see them shut out their last two opponents, you look at the Farley kid at corner. You look at the Chamari Connor kid who plays the roverish position. They only have one senior that starts for them, so Tech next year might be worth a look in terms of any futures for the ACC. They played a lot better with Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker has gone from the Tecmo Bowl playbook to the Super Tecmo Bowl playbook to now like a hybrid playbook, almost a Madden playbook, because they've added a lot of things. They've got a great wide receiving core. So that's all the stuff to consider on the Tech side. On the Virginia side, Bryce Perkins has been playing some great football. He's prone to a fumble. He's prone to an interception or two. He started out the year with a very interception-free streak, and then he had a couple games where he had a couple of interceptions. Both offensive lines stink. Both front sevens are really good. So who can get more pressure on the quarterback? Virginia's got a very good wide receiving group, but they don't use it enough. Their running game is very subpar. The keys are Joe Reed, kickoff return, one of the best kickoff returners in the country. If he gets his hands on the ball, there's a good chance he's going to take it back to the house. Oscar Bradburn, the punter for Virginia Tech, one of the best punters in America. He can push people deep in territory here. And then also, what's the deal with the crowd? It's a noon kickoff on Black Friday in Charlottesville. This is one of those games where the Virginia fans might have sold their tickets to Tech fans. We've seen plenty of Tech fans show up in Charlottesville. There's a lot of factors here. I was very surprised because I saw the Circa opened it up as a pick'em. I thought, okay, that's about right because these two teams are playing good football. You add in that mental aspect that Tech has crushed them in a bunch of years in a row. And then it gets up to 3. And, Drew, I'll be interested after you're done to know why you're laying the points. But at 3, I think I'm taking UVA. I think I see this as a 23-21 Tech win. I can't pick UVA to win outright until I actually see it happen. UVA is the better team, but I think the mental aspect gives Virginia Tech the tight win. Still, at 3 points, I'm taking the home team plus the 3.
Really? All right. You're liking Virginia as well. I guess I could just throw out a couple points here on the Virginia Tech side. A couple games in a row. They've beat them 15 straight games, Matt. I think there's something there to that. Virginia Tech has really rattled off some wins in this rivalry. We also got they've won their last 6 games ATS against FBS opponents. Talk about the hottest team outside of Clemson in the ACC. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Those would be the 2 main reasons. Also, you talked about the change at the quarterback position with Hooker, and that speaks to a lot of why they've been able to run off such a run here. And the fact that they have played better against, when you start talking about matchup handicapping, which I think, trends are nice, but when you can pick out a matchup where one side has an advantage over the other, the Virginia Tech defense kind of plays better, in my opinion, against the plotting type offenses like Virginia has, not necessarily explosive playmaking. So I guess those are the 3 reasons why I bet Virginia Tech.
Now, the one thing is they've had, and this is Bud Foster saying the past couple of years, they've had troubles with the mobile quarterbacks. You go back to Duke. That was when Quentin Harris was really good. He gave them a lot of fits. I think he even ran for over 100 yards. He threw for a bunch of yards. Boston College, you go back, Anthony Brown was very mobile way back in week one. You look at, I'm trying to see some of the other guys. You know, the Cade Howell kid for North Carolina is a little bit mobile. Jamie Newman was, but Jamie Newman lost all his wide receivers. It's a worry that Bud Foster has had problems with mobile quarterbacks. They are trying to win one for Bud. This is his final regular season game. Of course, they'll have the bowl game, and they could potentially have the ACC championship should they win this one. The mental factor is huge, Drew. If they start going down, then there's some uneasiness. If it's tight and Virginia Tech has the ball and Virginia has to make one stop, how will they think about it? I 100% agree. And as I said, I think Tech wins the game. I just think they cover this tight number. The score I predicted was 23-21. I think Tech wins. UVA covers in this one.
All right, Matt. Anything else you want to throw out on the pod before we shut this down?
No, I think it's good. The key is, as we said, look at teams who are playing for bowls, who are playing for conference championships. Teams that have already clinched their conference championships may not have a lot to play for in this one. This week, the rivalry games, of course, they're always important. So there's a lot of things to consider besides the face value for a lot of these games. All
right, Matt. Hopefully you have a fun, safe weekend, man. Best of luck with your bets.
Yeah, best of luck, everybody.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. That does it for the Sports Memo podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed the weekend, Thanksgiving with your friends and family. Best of luck with your bets, both college football and the NFL. We do have the NFL opening line report with Teddy Covers posted on YouTube, wherever you're getting your podcasts, on the website, sportsmemo.com. We're not going to do the NFL every game on the board, but college football every game on the board. The first three sections are on YouTube and on the website here, posted before. So go check them out and check out Mid-Major Matt's service at sportsmemo.com. Best of luck with your bets, guys. Have a fun, safe weekend. We'll talk on Monday. NFL opening line report with Teddy Covers. Best of luck, guys.